So you want to become a sex therapist. That's fantastic. I love sex therapists. I'm Alex Caroline Robboy, and I've been a practicing sex therapist and marriage and family therapist for a little over 25 years. I'm the founder of the Center for Growth.com, as well as sextherapyinphiladelphia.com and sextherapy.com. I personally had way too much schooling, and I don't think anybody needs as much schooling as I had. I have a master's in social work. I have a postmaster's in marriage and family therapy and a specialty in sex therapy. I also have a certificate of advanced studies in human sexuality education. Okay, so what do you need to really be a sex therapist? You just need a degree in therapy. So you could be a social worker, marriage and family therapist, a mental health counselor, psychologist, or even a psychiatrist. Second, you need a really good field placement, ideally working in a practice that does sex therapy. And in this practice, ideally, all of your work will be videotaped and audio recorded so you can present it to your supervisor and she or he can go over it with you line by line and help you figure out what you're doing well and how to improve. Third, it's really important that you actually specialize in sex therapy. And what do I mean by this? Well, you need to do some book learning for the biology of sexual development and reproductive health. You also should become a marriage counselor. Most people are actually having sex in the context of a relationship. So, having some marriage counseling skills is useful. Sex typically is a two-person or even three or four-person activity. So, if you know about dynamics of relationships, you're just going to be a little bit stronger as a sex therapist. You'll also need to do some book learning for understanding the cross-cultural perspectives of sexuality. It's really different country to country. Some basic sex education is always useful. I believe that we are all sexual beings from birth until death. If you're working with people in the field, there's some huge developmental differences between talking to a 5-year-old about sex versus a 35-year-old or even a 95-year-old. If you're going to become a sex therapist, I strongly recommend that you get to know the famous sex therapists and researchers in the field. What did they study? What does the research say? What do all these famous sex therapists believe? What are their philosophies? What are their approaches? You don't have to make everything up. There's a lot of information out there already. Other core topics that would be very useful for you to learn about would be basic sexual behaviors, sexual function, sexual dysfunction, as well as sex addiction, sexual orientation, and gender identity. Lastly, I think all sex therapists need to do their own work. They really need to understand their own sexual history and their own development. What are their beliefs? What have they tried? What have they liked? What do they not like? And of course, just to increase your own comfort, I strongly encourage everybody to go to a sex club, go to a strip club, kink activities, sex toy shops, go to a swingers club. Basically, have fun, explore, learn about sexuality. You can also watch porn. You can also talk to people. Uh, the more you get curious and the more information you gather, the stronger of a sex therapist you're actually going to be. Lastly, attending a sex conference would be very useful. Just get to know the community. If you're trying for credibility, I'd strongly encourage that you work for someone like me that has an organization that is well known in the community for sexuality. If you're wanting to be a sex therapist, I'd recommend working for an organization like myself. My organization gives you a lot of credibility. People know, people associate my name with sex therapy. So if I'm feeding you clients, if I'm feeding you clients, people know that you're competent. And if you're not competent, then you have all the resources at your fingertips to become competent. Or you could become a certified sex therapist, which is going to demonstrate to the outside public that you have an extra 3,000 hours of doing this kind of work. Listen, at the end of the day, The choice is yours. All you need is a degree in therapy, a field placement, some books, and a really good supervisor. Beyond that, everything's just extra. I hope this was helpful, and I'm secretly hoping that you're gonna reach out to me and apply for a job with us. Would love to have you join the team.